welcome address. There's Jeff, sir.
Your Excellency, President Muhammadu Buhari, the President of the Senate, my Lord, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, the Chairman of the Governors Forum, members of the Federal Executive Council, the UN Resident Commissioner, our awardees, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I am very delighted to deliver this welcome address on the occasion of the second National Summit on Diminishing Corruption in the Public Sector. The COVID-19 pandemic has forced us to adapt and find new ways of doing things. When we gathered at the State House Banquet Hall last year, little did we know that this year's summit would be virtual, but here we are with a new normal. This period of the year is of national significance because a few days from today, we will be marking the 60th independence anniversary of our dear country. This year is also the 20th anniversary of the establishment of the ICPC. I facilitated with the ICPC on the celebration of our 20th anniversary. I am personally connected with ICPC, Mr. President, because I had the privilege of handing over the present headquarters of the Commission to late Justice Mustafa Akombi, the pioneer chairman of ICPC, when I was serving as the executive member in the interim management committee of the defunct Petroleum Trust Fund, which you had the privilege to chair for several years. ICPC has come of age and is growing in leaps and bounds. Your Excellency, fighting corruption is a core priority of this administration because, as we all know, corruption poses an essential threat to Nigeria. Mr. President has at home and abroad canvassed the imperative to put in place policies and measures to reduce corruption. Over the years, corruption has hindered government from attaining critical objectives and national development plans. The surest way that we as a nation can realize the sustainable development goals and core national objectives is to significantly reduce corruption. Mr. President has firmly underscored the need for effective action against corruption by this administration by the introduction of policies and measures to reduce corruption, particularly in the public sector of our country. The significance of tackling corruption in public service is anchored on the fact that they remain the main vehicle for formulating and implementing government programs and policies, which implies that they drive all the necessary processes for good governance. In this wise, if the public service is mired in corrupt practices, it provides an unfettered opportunity for the private sector and other Nigerians to engage in such practices. However, if the public service abides by the required rules and regulations for conducting businesses, and such opportunities are reduced, if not eliminated, and they would form the bulwark in dealing with corrupt practices. This summit, Your Excellency, is a follow-up to last year's National Summit on Diminishing Corruption in the Public Sector, jointly organized by my office and the ICPC. The theme of this year's summit is Together Against Corruption, in consonance with the theme of our 60th independence anniversary. This year's theme is a call for unity and concerted efforts in the fight against corruption. It stresses that fighting corruption is not the work of government alone. Every citizen, faith-based organizations, traditional institutions, and civil societies, the media, and the private sector, and youths must join in this fight. This summit, Your Excellency, will mark an important event in the life of Nigeria, as it will witness the launching of the National Ethics and Integrity Policy by Mr. President. The policy was approved by the Federal Executive Council at its 2020 20th meeting held on Wednesday, 19th August 2020. I wish to commend the ICPC for preparation of the draft policy, and also appreciate the National Orientation Agency for its collaborative role in bringing this policy to fruition. If we recognize that the public service is the vehicle for delivery of government policies, programs, and projects, it goes without saying that honesty and integrity are crucial ingredients for public service delivery. Therefore, those who distinguish themselves in this regard deserve recognition. Last year, Mr. President presented Public Service Integrity Award to 2 outstanding public servants. We are continuing with this annual recognition of deserving public servants with presidential recognition of the 2020 recipients of this award. In commemoration of her 20th anniversary, the ICPC organized 20th anniversary music and essay competitions on the theme of anti-corruption. The essay competition was organized for junior and secondary school students. Mr. President will also present awards to the winners of this competition a short while from now. I commend the ICPC for using this unique initiative to involve Nigerian youth in the fight against corruption. Nigerian youths are crucial to the success of this fight against corruption, and I call on Nigerian youth to inculcate the values of honesty and integrity at home, in school, and wherever they may find themselves. Let me close, Your Excellency, Mr. President, by repeating what I said in July this year during the African Regional Webinar on combating corruption and illicit financial flows organized by the ICPC earlier in the year, where I said, and I quote, "We all need to take responsibility for the fight against corruption as we take responsibility against infection of COVID-19. COVID-19 kills, but corruption kills even more. ICPC alone cannot fight corruption. We all must be involved. Failure to take responsibility is dangerous to self and the society as whole." Unquote. The journey to self-responsibility begins with ethical reorientation and embracing integrity as a way of life, which the National Ethics and Integrity Policy promotes. Once more, Your Excellency, I congratulate the ICPC on its 20th anniversary and welcome you all to this summit. And I wish you a fruitful deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you.
By the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, and I join him to welcome you to the second National Summit on Diminishing Corruption in the Public Sector. And on behalf of the outside broadcast crew and the management of the NTA, I welcome you to this live coverage of the event taking place here at the Council Chambers of the Presidential Villa in Abuja. My name is Jide Onifade.
Years ago, Africa's foremost anti-corruption agency, the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, was born. From year 2000 to date, the commission has had 4 governing boards headed by late Justice Mustafa Akambi, Justice Emmanuel Olayinka Ayola, Mr. Ekbo Unta, and Professor Bolaji Owasonye. The Commission has a 3-pronged mandate of enforcement, prevention, and public education and enlightenment. As part of its enforcement mandate, over 20,808 petitions have been received, with about 5,000 successfully investigated and over 1,000 prosecuted in court. Assets worth billions of naira, including cash, houses, plots of land, and vehicles, have also been recovered. Under the prevention mandate, the Commission has undertaken system studies and reviews, conducted corruption risk assessments, established anti-corruption and transparency units (ACTUs) in 445 MDAs, whilst also administering the Ethics and Compliance Scorecard. Furthermore, the Commission made inputs into the introduction and design of the Port Service Support Portal, the BVN, IPPIS, and GIFMIS. In terms of public education and enlightenment, ICPC has developed various platforms to sensitize the Nigerian public against corruption and advocate for values reorientation. These include the National Values Curriculum, anti-corruption clubs and vanguards for students, a coalition of civil society organizations, citizens engagement forums, and outreaches to NYSC members. Recently, too, ICPC initiated the National Ethics and Integrity Policy in collaboration with the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation and National Orientation Agency for the good and ethical conduct of the Nigerian citizenry, which the President is to launch. To enhance citizen involvement and feedback, a whistleblower toll-free hotline has been launched with a smart number 0800 Call ICPC. Further to the public education mandate, the Anti-Corruption Academy of Nigeria, ACAN, was established to conduct ethics and integrity trainings for the public and has trained about 14,000 participants. In 2018, it organized CRA training for heads of anti-corruption agencies in African Union as part of President Buhari's role as the AU anti-corruption champion. The current ICPC board has since its inauguration followed the footsteps of its predecessors by improving on the mandate of the commission. Some new initiatives include the Constituency and Executive Projects Tracking Initiative to monitor zonal intervention projects and executive projects and tracking of the social investment programs of government. In pursuit of these projects and other objectives, ICPC has collaborations with Office of the Auditor General of the Federation, FIRS, NOA, NTA, PEBEC, AMCON, to mention a few. In 2019, the Commission, in collaboration with the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, introduced the Public Service Integrity Award to honor public servants who exhibit exemplary acts of integrity in the performance of their duties. To enhance operations, ICPC through the years has empowered its staff with new skills and equipment. The Commission recently acquired a newly equipped forensic lab and trained officers on polygraph and handwriting analysis and other modern investigative tools. Going forward, the Commission is braced up with new visions and strategies to navigate the ever-dynamic world of anti-corruption, especially in view of the current world challenges. The success recorded by the Commission in the last 20 years would not have been possible without its amazing and committed staff in the headquarters and all its 15 state offices, management, the past and present boards who gave themselves totally to the fight against corruption. We thank our partners, the government of Nigeria, and most importantly, the Nigerian people whom we are here to serve. We are poised to do better in the next 20 years. Congratulations, ICPC. Congratulations, Nigeria.
I joined the narrator in that documentary to say congratulations, ICPC, and congratulations, Nigeria. Next on our agenda is a keynote address, and the person to present that is no less than the chairman of ICPC. My pleasure to invite to the podium here Professor Bolaji Owasanwoye.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, sir, the Senate President, Dr. Ahmed Lawan, my Lord, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Honorable Justice Ibrahim Tanko, the Chairman of Governors Forum, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, who has joined us virtually, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, the Chief of Staff, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, Honorable Ministers and members of the Executive Council here present, the Head of Service, who is joined virtually, and the UN Resident Coordinator in Nigeria, Mr. Edward Kalon. The distinguished awardees, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, ICPC board members who have joined virtually, and the staff and management. Your Excellency, sir, let me start by congratulating you and the heads of the three arms of government and levels of government for being in office at Nigeria's Diamond Jubilee. Despite the challenges of the times, whether past or present, your leadership and that of your predecessors give us reasons to be proud of modest but undeniable achievements. The Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Act was passed and came into force in June 2000 as the first anti-corruption agency of Nigeria's Fourth Republic. The Commission has had 4 governing boards and chairmen, with a 4th chairman and the board currently in office. Your Excellency, sir, I wish to recognize posthumously the pioneer chairman, the late Honorable Justice Mustafa Akumbi, the 2nd chairman, the Honorable Justice Emmanuel Ayola, a retired Justice of the Supreme Court, the 3rd chairman, Mr. Epo Nta, and the 4th board and its members who are building on the foundations that have been laid by these distinguished Nigerians. The ICPC was established to investigate and, when necessary, to prosecute corruption and related offenses, to prevent corruption by examining the systems and the processes of public bodies that predispose them to corruption, and to direct or supervise a review of such practices and to educate and enlist the support of the public against corruption. Within this threefold mandate, sir, the Commission has in the past 20 years recorded a number of milestones. It has treated over 20,000 petitions, found over 5,000 worthy of full investigation, and prosecuted about 1,000 of such investigated cases. Within the same period, sir, we have conducted 47 full system study reviews, 582 reviews focusing on personnel and capital budget utilization, the review of the Open Treasury Portal, which was commissioned by Mr. President late last year, and implementation of some of the recommendations of the report of the Auditor General of the Federation on MDAs. We have conducted corruption risk assessments on the key sectors of the economy and made recommendations towards improving same to improve governance, most notably in the transport sector, education, health, and the e-government system. We have established 445 anti-corruption and transparency units in MDAs, established the Anti-Corruption Academy of Nigeria, which has trained about 14,000 public servants in about 5 years. We have also opened 15 state offices across Nigeria, with 2 in each geopolitical zone of the Federation. The ICPC was privileged to make input into the design and the introduction of the BVN, the IPs, and the GIFMIS, to mention a few achievements. Sir, we developed the National Values Curriculum that is being taught through different subjects at primary and post-primary levels in schools across Nigeria. And much more recently, we led the initiative for the preparation of the National Ethics and Integrity Policy that Mr. President will launch today. The current board has focused on activities that strengthen government's desire to eradicate corruption in the revenue and expenditure sides of government and to take development closer to the people by ensuring value for money in the implementation of publicly funded projects. I will mention a few of our interventions, sir. Mr. President will recall that the Commission introduced the Constituency Projects Tracking Initiative in 2019. This year, we expanded the scope to include executive projects with special attention to areas that are of keen interest to government, most notably agriculture, water resources, power, education, and health. The second phase of the tracking exercise, which commenced this year, covered 722 projects. 490 of these were for zonal intervention projects, otherwise called constituency projects, and 232 focused on executive projects, spread across 16 states of the Federation. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the acute shortage of manpower that we have, we used a threshold of 100 million naira for project selection. This means that we left out projects that were below 100 million in value. This decision produced the unintended consequence of a concentration on the projects of distinguished senators of the Federal Republic and very few projects from the lower chamber. I wish to put on record that we did not set out to target the Senate by this exercise. We just practically selected projects that we could monitor based on value. As with Phase 1, the projects were selected by a steering committee comprising and led by the ICPC, but made up of the Budget Office, Office of the Accountant General of the Federation, Office of the Auditor General of the Federation, the BPP, the media, and some selected civil society organizations, and the Nigerian Institute of Quantity Surveyors. No single project was inserted by an individual or by the chairman of ICPC. I simply approve whatever the steering committee wants to track. The 2020 exercise revealed some improvement in project delivery, although many challenges remain. Amongst other anomalies, we found, for example, sir, and I should say that the full report is contained in the pack that is in front of Mr. President and the distinguished members who are here today. It is titled the Constituency and Executive Project Tracking Report, Interim Report. We found, for example, sir, the categorization of projects by civil servants and MDAs as ongoing in order to get the Ministry of Finance and Budget and Planning to admit those projects. A number of the projects that were described as ongoing were actually found out to be new projects that ought to have been excluded in order to enable government to complete existing projects as planned. Number two, we found the absence of needs assessment. Projects were recommended by sponsors for communities that did not require them. So, for example, we found recommended for some communities primary health care centers or hospitals that already existed. And when these are built, they can hardly be staffed nor equipped or furnished. We found the same thing with asking for computers for schools that already had computers. Tons of them are bought and left in boxes. Such projects end up being abandoned in spite of the huge sums appropriated for them. Number three, some projects were found to be sited on private property or private houses or land, thus appropriating common assets to personal use without going through the formality of transferring such private land or property to the public or to the communities on which those projects are being sited, thus denying the communities of the benefit of the projects. We found, sir, number four, the absence of synergy between outgoing project sponsors and their successors. So, for example, if a legislator sponsors a project and did not return to the legislature, the project where it is half done with government public funds, they are abandoned, and the new person who comes in to represent that constituency or community simply nominates new projects, and the old projects are abandoned without regard for the money that had already been spent by the public for the project. Number five, beg your pardon. There's a rampant use of companies that are owned by officers of implementing MDAs or companies owned by sponsoring legislators or their family members to execute projects. If they are qualified, this itself is not a problem. The problem is that many of such projects end up being poorly done or inflated in terms of value, thus denying the public of what it deserves. We found in some cases conspiracy between the legislative aides of the sponsors and the implementing MDs and the contractors to undermine the quality and the quantity of the projects without the knowledge of the sponsor. We found that vague project description often results in diversion of funds by some of the implementing MDs or the project sponsor with a collusion of contractors. And we found also, finally, the absence of community ownership of projects, because communities are sometimes not consulted and they are often largely ignorant of projects that have been approved for them. These are just some of the findings. The full report, as I said, is in the pack and is in the public domain from today. Thus far, sir, ICPC effort from this initiative has forced 59 contractors handling projects worth 2.25 billion back to site. Their names and the location of those projects are contained in the report that we have produced. The list of the affected projects is contained in the CPTG interim report for 2020, but we must also mention that we found that some projects were very well done and they met the value for money threshold because the sponsors paid particular attention and made sure that they were properly done. Such projects have also been listed in Appendix 4 of our report, commending those who sponsored them, seeing them to fruition. Furthermore, sir, we have recovered and mostly returned to beneficiary communities assets worth about 700 million and cash of almost 200 million in the asset recovery account. In order to improve the delivery of executive and constituency projects, we again wish to recommend that government should, as a policy, prohibit MDAs from executing projects that are outside of their core mandate. This is because some of them have inadequate capacity, human capital, to supervise and properly implement those projects as intended by the sponsors and as intended by government. For example, if we look at a breakdown of the 2020 zonal intervention projects, which we also did for public education and is also in the pack that we've presented, over 10% of the allocation, ZIP allocation, which is usually 100 billion, about 13.2 billion went to one MDA with very small human capital and capacity to monitor and ensure that the projects get effectively done. Secondly, we want to advise better synergy between project sponsors and benefiting communities. Implementing agencies should liaise with communities where necessary. For example, to designate where projects should be sited where the sponsor refuses to do so. Much more importantly, it helps the communities to take ownership of projects. It is one thing for a sponsor to recommend a project, but the community expectation that the sponsor will continue to maintain the projects for his lifetime is not fair on the sponsor. And so it is important that this should be clarified and a synergy between the community and the sponsors. The conversion of projects from appropriated ones to another one by sponsors or implementing MDAs should be severely punished. The Commission will, of course, in future, prosecute false description of projects as ongoing in order to smuggle them into the budget. The late releases of budget with short timeline for performance also leaves room for default. In one case, we found that budget release that was late, the implementing MDA gave contractors 3 weeks to complete projects, which included building, for example. This situation leaves room for default and waste of public funds or corruption. Next, sir, I go to our prevention mandate. The application of the Commission's prevention powers is divided into 4 areas. We reviewed transactions on the Open Treasury portal. We reviewed the personnel and capital budget utilization of some selected MDAs. Based on our collaboration with the Auditor General of the Federation, we reviewed his report on infractions that he found on some MDAs. And finally, we administered the Ethics and Integrity Scorecard on MDAs as an indication of their corruption risk or their strength to withstand or to stand against corruption. On the Open Treasury portal, sir, we reviewed transactions from January up till August. We reviewed 268 MDAs. We found that 72 had cumulative suspected infractions worth over 90 million, which we selected in phase 1. And we focused on payments, of course, with the portal captures of threshold of 5 million and above. But sometimes we went below the 5 million just to see what had happened. Of this, we noticed that 4.1 billion was transferred by some MDs to sub-TSA accounts, and 4.2 billion was paid to individuals, which was not satisfactorily explained to us. Investigations are ongoing in this regard. But I should observe that the payment of money that should be awarded as contracts or project costs to proper companies that should have gone through procurement, when you pay to individuals, the first thing that suffers is tax, because the individuals who are purportedly going to implement those projects don't pay tax. And so government's tax revenue expectations is not met because of this practice of paying project funds to individuals. We observed that frequently the transfer of money to sub-TSA was usually to prevent disbursement from being monitored online on GIFMIS, either by the anti-corruption agencies or even the Accountant General of the Federation. We discovered payments to federal colleges, secondary schools for school feeding, amounting to 2.67 billion during the lockdown when children were not in school, and some of this money we traced ended up in personal accounts. We have arrested those who are involved, and investigations are ongoing to who they fed when children were at home and there was a lockdown. Our focus on revenue generating agency, based on our collaboration with the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation, has focused on revenue generating agency but has been delayed by COVID-19 lockdown. We are currently doing 2 focal agencies, namely the Federal Inland Revenue and the Nigerian Customs for this pilot stage. As with 2019, sir, we did some personnel and capital budget utilization review, focusing on health and education sectors. In the health sector, about 52 institutions were reviewed, and we found, again, about surplus of 4.6 billion on personnel costs, which we recommended to the Honorable Minister of Finance to be restrained from abuse, except the agencies were able to offer credible explanations. We still discovered abuse of personnel costs by some officers on the Give Me platform, most notably the Usman Dan Fodio University Teaching Hospital, where 227 million was diverted by a young man of 28 years old from the surplus personnel cost without the knowledge of his superior and management. He used technology and we brought him to our office to show us exactly what he did. We noticed for some improvements, sir, in the health institutions that we looked at compared to 2019, in their utilization of funds and compliance with due process. Nevertheless, we wish to humbly suggest, sir, that our recommendations on reallocation of funds to health institutions are yet to be carried out by government, and we urge that this should be done. It will assist these institutions to better meet their fiscal and transparency standards and relieve them of some of the challenges responsible for perennial default and susceptibility to investigation. We strongly recommend that visitation teams should be appointed to these health tertiary institutions and federal medical centers to conduct a performance and personnel audit on them and to determine the actual number of personnel required for optimum performance, because we keep finding them claiming personnel that we are not persuaded exist. It is anomalous, for example, to find that some federal medical centers have more personnel than teaching hospitals. We also recommend that government should properly define what is internally generated revenue and provide adequate overhead allocations and funding for the outsourced services of these institutions from what we are very sure are the inevitable savings from personnel costs when the audit is done. On the education sector, sir, in view of our collaboration with the Auditor General, we reviewed infractions that the Auditor General found in his 2017 report, and we selected about 78 education sector MDAs which are being reviewed. The common findings are payment, again, of bulk sums to staff accounts, including so-called project funds. As I said, oftentimes the first casualty is tax, because tax is never paid by those individuals. Whereas if the proper track had been followed, government will earn the tax revenue that is projected for. We noticed non-deduction and remittance of taxes and IGR, payment of unapproved allowances, bulk payments to microfinance banks. Some of these institutions pay money to microfinance banks because many of those microfinance banks are not covered by this BVN policy. We're hoping that the CBN will extend the BVN policy and government will extend the BVN policy to them so that we can track very quickly. I will move very quickly to other areas of our work. The Ethics and Integrity Scorecard on MDAs was designed to identify institutional weaknesses that promote corruption in the public service. In spite of the pandemic and restrictions, the Commission deployed the scorecard on 352 MDAs nationwide. Findings from this survey is also included in the pack that are before your excellencies. It is clear that we noticed that financial management scored slightly better. And the reason for this is because government had insisted on the automation of transactions through GIFMIS, TSA, IPs, and Remitter, and e-platform. Unfortunately, the areas that scored low was on management, culture, and structure and administrative system. We find out that abuse takes place because this area is yet to be strengthened. We urge that government will strengthen the administrative and management structures so that it will complement the financial management infrastructure that government has put in place. In the list that we have published, we've showed the corruption risks, MDAs, and those that scored very well. On asset recovery, sir, the Commission has, in the process of its enforcement measures, based on intelligence, recovered some sums of money. For example, early in the year, we seized about 16 billion from the Federal Ministry of Agric because the money was moved under suspicious circumstances below the threshold that will put it under the purview of the Accountant General or other anti-corruption agencies. Furthermore, some of the money we found was paid into some personal accounts and used for non-official purposes. Although investigations are ongoing, delayed due to COVID-19, the bulk of the money restrained in CBN was released in the peak of the pandemic when the ministry appealed to the Commission that it needed to make palliatives available to Nigerians to reduce the effect of COVID-19. The Commission and the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation are tracking the use of these funds to ensure that there is value for money. On another note, we found that some contractors were paid for jobs not done or deliberately overpaid for jobs done, and the excess was shared by the contractors and some of the defaulting officers. One individual from the ministry, who is now deceased, appropriated over 2.5 billion to himself and his cronies. I will skip some of the other assets that we have recovered, and I go quickly towards our effort at public education and enlightenment. Your Excellency will recall that in 2019 we pledged to involve communities and citizens in project monitoring. In fulfillment of that pledge, sir, we launched the My Constituency, My Project nationwide, during which we sensitized and enlisted community ownership. We also accompanied that by publishing a toll-free line through which Nigerians can call in to our office to find out the projects that government has allocated for their constituency. And we are happy to report that this has worked very well, but there's still much more to be done. We also published a leaflet breaking down zonal intervention projects by sector, by state, and by region in order to guide the public from tracking what government is doing for themselves to reduce the complaint that they have been abandoned. To boost community involvement for our 20th anniversary, we launched in July the 20 million from ICPC at 20 project, with two main competitions aimed at provoking youth creativity and support for the fight against corruption. These were the National Music Competition and the National Essay Competition for junior and secondary schools with anti-corruption or integrity clubs. ICPC will give out 20 million prize money with the kind support of MacArthur Foundation. Your Excellency, sir, I wish to use this opportunity to thank the MacArthur Foundation and its country director, Dr. Koli Ahmed Shetima, for his invaluable and generous support to ICPC in particular and Nigeria in general. I will, in the course of this event, sir, introduce the winners of the competitions and those of the public sector and integrity awardees. Your Excellency, sir, we're delighted that Mr. President will today launch the National Ethics and Integrity Policy as one of the milestones for Nigeria at 60 and ICPC at 20. We're delighted to have initiated and actively worked on this policy with stakeholders from the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation and the National Orientation Agency to return Nigerians to the values of old that made Nigeria great from north to south, east to west, and that promoted values that are cherished by Mr. President. The Ethics and Integrity Policy is a follow-up to previous initiatives of the Commission, such as the establishment of the Anti-Corruption and Transparency Units in 2002 and the development of the National Values Curriculum for Teaching, which has been introduced since 2012. This policy is a befitting follow-up to these initiatives, and we again thank those who have partnered with us for doing this. Sir, let me end my speech by extending the profound gratitude of the Commission, its management and staff to Mr. President, sir, for your leadership and for your support to the work of the Commission. Your unequivocal stand against corruption is a morale booster to the fight against corruption. Without your stand and positioning, the message will be diluted to do or not to do. This is not the case with you, sir. Your message is clear. If we do not kill corruption, corruption will kill Nigeria. We assure you, sir, that as your foot soldiers, we will not allow corruption to kill Nigeria. I also want to thank the Senate President in particular, and through him the committees that oversight the Commission in both the Senate and the House of Reps, and indeed the entire legislature, for their cooperation and understanding. In February this year, we had a very productive retreat with members of our committee to explain our mandate and share our vision and take their input and suggestions. Let me again use this opportunity to clear the air that the Constituency and Executive Project Tracking Initiative of ICPC is not targeted at members of the National Assembly. We only invite legislators to clarify where necessary. Most of the clarification is done by companies. We also thank my Lord, the Chief Justice of Nigeria and the Honorable Attorney General. Let me finally thank the SGF for his leadership and proactive disposition to issues. Sir, with your permanent secretaries, GSO, political and cabinet office, you make governance very easy. We appreciate you for a number of initiatives that you drive. What else should we expect from the boss? Finally, to the board and the management of ICPC, especially the pioneer staff who were there 20 years ago, up till today. Let me see, this is your celebration. Congratulations to you for being a part of the anniversary. I pray that God will grant you the favor to see many more years of progress of the institution and of Nigeria. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you, sir.
Well, let's remind you, viewers, that this second National Summit is being organized by the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, in collaboration with the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offenses Commission.
So ICPC at 20, theme of the celebration is Together Against Corruption. The first intervention of between 3 and 5 minutes will come from the UN Resident Coordinator in Nigeria, Mr. Edward Kalon.
Your Excellency, President Muhammadu Buhari, GCON, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Honorable Ministers, Attorney General of the Federation, Chief of Justice of Nigeria, Senate President of Nigeria, and the Chairman of the Governors Forum, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Director General ICPC, the Chief of Staff, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I am delighted to be part of this epoch-making event, the second in series of events organized in collaboration with the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation to review the fight against corruption in Nigeria and to mark the 20th anniversary of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offenses Commission. This summit indeed signifies another step in demonstrating Nigeria's commitment to the global fight against corruption. Excellency, the United Nations Convention Against Corruption provides tools for countries to prevent, control, and combat corruption, including the recovery of proceeds of crime. Diminishing corruption in the public sector is one of the main thrusts of this convention. Comprehensive provisions which should be domesticated and implemented in accordance with the fundamental principles of law of each country include the following. 1. The recruitment, hiring, retention, promotion, and retirement of civil servants based on principles of efficiency, transparency, merits, and equity, as well as adequate remuneration. 2. Transparency in the funding of candidatures for elected public offices, and where applicable, the funding of political parties and prevention of conflict of interest are provided in Article 7 of the Convention. In addition, Article 8 of the Convention provides for codes of conduct for public officials, while Article 9 deals with measures to enhance transparency in public procurement and management of public finances, all with a view to preventing corruption in the public service. If countries take advantage of this global legal framework, they can contribute in building a robust structure for efficient and effective anti-corruption policies and enforcement. From the elaboration to the practical efforts in implementing the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, Nigeria has relentlessly advocated for the recovery and return of proceeds of corruption to countries of origin. Together with other concerned countries, Nigeria has sponsored resolutions, including Resolution 8/8 on strengthening international cooperation in asset recovery with a view in support of the 2030 goals on sustainable development. We recognize significant progress has been made in law enforcement against corruption in Nigeria, but there is still room for improvement. In my remark at one of the events organized in July this year to mark the 20th anniversary of the ICPC, I did observe, and I quote, "In Nigeria, for example, 2019 marked the year with the largest number of corruption-related convictions. At the same time, the Nigerian government, in cooperation with its partners, was able to recover and return to Nigeria hundreds of millions of US dollars from field jurisdictions. I also observed that despite these efforts and successes, citizens' appreciation of the fight against corruption remains low in many countries. While negative perceptions may not be fair reflection of the progress being made, we need to acknowledge them. It is against this background, Your Excellency, that I would like to reiterate that while a citizen-centered approach should be an integral part of anti-corruption efforts, my suggestions for further discussion on 4 specific actions drawn from our experience in Nigeria remain relevant. 1. Ending widespread small-scale bribery. While large-scale corruption scandals may capture the attention of the public, our experience suggests that actual experience with bribe-seeking behavior by public officials also influences citizens' perception of the effectiveness and seriousness of government's anti-corruption agendas. Unless there is a tangible reduction in such conduct, citizens will continue to have legitimate doubts concerning the actual commitment and reported successes to eradicate corruption. 2. Enhancing the development impact of asset recovery. The recovery of large sums of proceeds of corruption from a citizen's perspective is only relevant if these proceeds translate visibly into improvements in their lives. It is thus crucial that countries find practical ways to ensure that both domestically and internationally recovered assets are managed in a transparent and accountable fashion and reliably reinvested into the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. This is in line with the respective resolution on strengthening asset recovery to support the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which was sponsored by Kenya, Nigeria, and the states of Palestine, and adopted by the Conference of State Parties to the United Nations Convention Against Corruption at its 8th session held in December 2019 in Abu Dhabi, UAE. 3. Creative, effective, and responsive public complaint systems. The request for citizens to own the fight against corruption is not new. Yet, as long as the state and its institutions are failing in the eyes of the public to demonstrate their determination in the fight against corruption, it is unlikely that we will convince citizens to embrace the fight against corruption wholeheartedly. 4th, improving transparency and communication in the fight against corruption. I believe we can and must do much better in communicating about the fight against corruption, bearing in mind that most citizens in Africa are below the age of 25. In this context, it is my great pleasure to refer to a short animated film which has been produced by the UN Office for Drugs and Crime, summarizing the key findings of the 2nd corruption survey in Nigeria with a view of reaching much broader public audience, in particular youths. UNODC, with some funding from DFID and the EU, supported the National Bureau of Statistics to conduct 2 corruption surveys in 2016 and 2019 respectively. Each survey provides key findings and recommendations that can help government in the different initiatives aimed at diminishing corruption in Nigeria. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, as the IPC marks its 20th anniversary, I would like to join you all in congratulating the leadership of the Commission for sustaining the momentum of the fight against corruption in Nigeria. The United Nations will remain an important partner in Nigeria's commitment to fight corruption and achieve sustainable development goals. I wish you fruitful deliberation at this summit. I am really delighted to be here. I today witness firsthand the commitment of the government of Nigeria under President Muhammadu Buhari to fight corruption. The level of transparency I've had today here is unequivocal, and that is a good start in the right direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Edward Callum, UN Resident Coordinator. I'd like to repeat his closing line. He said the level of transparency he has found there is unequivocal. Thank you very much, sir. Next, to give goodwill remarks is the Honorable Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Mr. Abubakar Malami, Senior Advocate of Nigeria.
Your Excellency, the Senate President, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, the Honorable Ministers, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Principal Officers of Government at the National Assembly, Executive and Judiciary here present. I am indeed delighted to be part of the second National Summit on Diminishing Corruption in the Public Sector, organized by the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation in collaboration with the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offenses Commission, the theme of which is Together Against Corruption. The summit, as the title of the theme depicts, is indeed about consolidation and upholding the essence of collaboration in the fight against corruption. The case of Fee and the ID is indeed a case study of how collaboration works in establishing the success of the fight against corruption, with particular reference to the role of different arms of government if only the fight against corruption can succeed. I am making particular reference to collaboration and togetherness with particular reference to the case of P&ID, taking into consideration that it was indeed a case in which Federal Ministry of Justice collaborated with the Office of the Inspector General of Police, the EFCC, the ICPC, Central Bank, Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, and Foreign Affairs Ministry, with particular role as well by the Ministry of Information and Culture in coming together to pursue a common cause that eventually translated into the success of turning or perhaps getting desired victories as it relates to the case of Fee and ID, which could have cost Nigeria over at around $10 billion in judgment. So in essence, the fact that coming together, these ministries has succeeded in returning and perhaps establishing a success story as against a story that was indeed beclouded with a lot of apprehension, is a clear case establishing the essence of corruption as far as the fight, as far as togetherness is concerned. The role and functions of diverse and multiple agencies of government, which in their own independent right could be either operating in silos or perhaps in collaboration, can best be appreciated with the collaboration undertone when we take into consideration the fact that legislature is exclusively saddled with the responsibility of lawmaking, and arising from the realization of such functions, we have succeeded in having in place legal framework that translated into multiple laws that in one way or the other affected what we do, or affects what we do in terms of the fight against corruption, inclusive of establishing the desired institutional framework that is necessary for the fight against corruption to succeed, inclusive, among others, of having in place EFCC, ICPC, the police, and whatever institution you can think of that has a function and role of the fight against corruption, are all indeed products of legislative framework. Equally, we We can also appreciate the essence of togetherness and collaboration as it relates to fight against corruption if we take into account the judicial interventions that is equally relevant and necessary for the success of the fight against corruption. It is the judiciary that is, at the end of the day, determine cases that have corruption undertones one way or the other. So however much the executive desires to fight against corruption, without the judiciary that determine the existence or otherwise of corrupt practices arising from the facts and evidence presented, it couldn't have been a reality. It is equally important to appreciate the essence of togetherness and collaboration within the context of the fight against corruption if we take into account the need for technological deployment. We can see what single treasury account has indeed succeeded in doing by way of ensuring transparency in the finances of the government. We can see what bank verification number has done in terms of supporting the system in tracking the money laundering cases, among others. We can equally see what technology has done in terms of supporting accountability and transparency in the art of governance. This, in essence, makes Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy an essential tool in collaboration as it relates to the fight against corruption. The summation of what I have succeeded in stating or in submitting is the fact that the fight against corruption is indeed a collaborative issue, and no arm of government, neither an institution, can succeed in fighting it all alone. It is a collective responsibility, and we must work hard to establish that spirit of togetherness, that spirit of collaboration, and that spirit of cooperation as far as the fight against corruption is concerned. The success of the fight against corruption is indeed a function of collaboration and togetherness. It is on this note, Your Excellency, Mr. President, distinguished participants, that I wish all of us fruitful deliberation in this second National Summit on Diminishing Corruption in the Public Sector, organized by the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation in collaboration with the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offenses Commission. I thank us all for participating. Thank you.
Of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation. Next is the Chairman, Nigeria Governors Forum, and the Governor of Ekiti State, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, who is online, and he will make his remarks now. Thank you.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, the Senate President, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, members of the Federal Executive Council here present, let me adhere to already established protocol, Mr. President. I am highly delighted to be here as part of the epoch-making event that marks the 20th anniversary of the establishment of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Commission. It's almost unbelievable that 20 years have since passed that late Justice Mustafa Akombi, the incorruptible pioneer chairman of the commission, began the journey of building this glorious commission from scratch. I pay due cognizance to his pioneering and untiring role, a solid foundation which was built upon by Justice Emmanuel Ayola and other great personalities who handed over to the current chairman of the commission. I'm not surprised by the progress that the current leadership under Dr. Bolaji Owasonye has made. He is someone whose reputation as a man of solid integrity preceded his appointment. He stint at the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption, where he discharged himself creditably as Secretary, readily recommended him for his current role, and I'm doubly sure that will make a significant breakthrough in the war against corruption in Nigeria during his tenure. Today's event is indeed an open testimony to the innovation which the leadership of ICPC has brought into the war against corruption. I understand this is the second summit on diminishing corruption in public sector, a strategic idea that is meant to bring together stakeholders in assessing, reviewing, and setting agenda for a corruption-free Nigeria. This summit is a commendable one, for it provides a platform for the critical actors in policy, governance, enforcement, and adjudication to take a hindsight, insight, and foresight view of the war so as to continue to responsibly reinvigorate the fight against corruption. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, permit me to make a few remarks on the fight against corruption in our country, especially as it relates to ICPC and as it relates to subnational government. It is beyond debate to acknowledge the many successes that the ICPC has recorded in the discharge of its mandate since its existence. The Commission has done fairly commendably in prosecution, in surveillance, and in policy advocacy. In spite of this, and even though ICPC has a broader mandate and wider jurisdiction of coverage than other anti-corruption agencies, there is this general perception that ICPC is an invisible commission and less aggressive as others. Although it is often suggested that the foundational leadership of the commission, being retired judges, were more reflective, more thorough, and less combative in their approach to their work, it is my considered opinion that the commission should strive to align its strategy with public expectation in terms of perception of its presence and effectiveness. Irrespective of this perception, though, the reality is that ICPC generally gets more done. It gets more convictions in cases it pursues in court. This testimonial is commendable, but I also think the ICPC needs to be more visible and forceful in the public space. Its mere presence should send jitters and serve as a deterrent to probable suspects. One of the ways to actualize this is to ensure that government businesses are fully digitized and interaction between clients and government service providers are almost nil. This is because at the roots of all corrupt practices is the desire to take advantage of the people because of the physical interactions that often bring about compromises. Therefore, the more we deploy communication technology to reduce tempting interactions, the more we are able to diminish corruption. And the cheaper and more effective will ICPC and other sister agencies become. This is a major focus at the Nigerian Governors Forum, where transparency and accountability in service delivery are crucial hallmarks of my tenure as chairman. For example, we're working with the World Bank to implement SIFTA's State Fiscal Transparency, Accountability and Sustainability Project, whose primary objective is to strengthen fiscal transparency, accountability and sustainability in participating states. And all our states, Mr. President, are participating in this, and it has significantly improved the institutionalization of anti-corruption and governance framework. In Ekiti, for example, openness is at the core of governmental value. We deliberately promote and ensure that government businesses are conducted transparently. We have not only enlisted in the SIFTOS program, we have also joined the Open Government Partnership. Some of the ways we have achieved this is through our integrated payroll payment system.
Well, you're still watching the program, the National Summit on Diminishing Corruption in the Public Sector.
And this is what obtained in virtually all our states.
Well, it seems we're losing contact Well, we're still listening to the chairman of the Governors Forum, Kayode Fayemi. I think he's back now.
We are lucky that we have a head in the country who personifies the hallmarks of integrity and anti-corruption. I know him fairly well and served under him as a minister for 3 years. I never received a note from him nor a directive to do anything that is abhorrent to my conscience nor against the law. He simply represents our very best in moral leadership and ethical conduct, and all in positions of authority should not entertain any fears in doing that which is right and lawful. I am more than sure that with the array of experts and highly resourceful persons present in this summit, we will generate useful ideas and set a new template that will strengthen the fight against corruption in our country. In conclusion, Mr. President, I'd like to congratulate the board, management and staff of the ICPC for the successes of the past 20 years since the establishment, and wish you more successes in the years ahead. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much.
That's another commitment from the Governors Forum, Kayode Fayemi. We now go back again to additional.
To get the corruption war right than now, and I'm sure a lot of Nigerians will agree with that. At several fora, Mr. President had always said that fighting corruption was not the exclusive duty of the executive. It has to be collaborative between executive, legislature, and the judiciary. And that makes...
Enter the event panelist numeric password, followed by pound.
It makes the next remarks very, very significant, as those remarks will come from the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Ibrahim Tanko Mohammed. Welcome, sir.
Mr. President,
This meeting is being recorded.
President Muhammad Buhari, Senate President Ahmad Lawan, permit me please to adopt the already laid down protocol. I start by congratulating the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, on its 20th anniversary and the successful virtual hosting of the second summit on diminishing corruption in the public sector. The journey has not been an easy one. There's daunting challenges and unpleasant moments had emerged at different times to test the resolve to fight corruption to a standstill. Your scorecard, by all standards, is fascinating and portends more glorious days ahead. In every nation, including the developed ones, the fight against corruption has never and will never be an easy one. In most cases, if the dynamics of combat are not properly engaged, corruption itself will go on a full-blown fight back, and then the whole scenario becomes complicated. To make a remarkable impact in this enterprise, the political will must be coherently defined and emboldened to avoid any impediments and suspicion, as the general populace is often contemplated or is tempted to attribute it to a deliberate and orchestrated witch hunt for perceived political or business force. Permit me to align this train of thought to the court from the great work of Daniel As, where he stated, what mattered was not what happens to you, but how you handle it. Self-command is required to overcome the dangerous misinformation of our emotions, and because for the most part the self is the only thing that we can command. We have no control ultimately over what people do or think. What we can influence is our understanding of these circumstances and how we respond to them. Unquote. The fight against corruption, Your Excellency, should be waged without recourse to any extraneous considerations, creed or race. Any action or policy that is laced with sentiments hardly makes meaningful impact. And incidentally, that has been the bane of some of our policies, failures in our nation. It is now incumbent on us at this turn of events to introspect with a view to evolving a new well-encompassing strategy so that we can wholeheartedly win the trust and support of the Nigerian masses. We should endeavor to be people-centric and all-inclusive in our approach to every issue and the policy bordering on the Nigerian project. We have to rejig our strategy and the tactics of fighting corruption. Our entire criminal laws have to be thoroughly appraised and updated so that those aspects that are primordial and out of turn with modern trends can be reviewed. This exercise, which has to be collaboratively be done by the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, should not be made an ad hoc affair. As new trends emerge day in, day out, such effort will largely help to completely phase out those archaic criminal laws that are antithetical to modern civilization. It is always embarrassing when some of our overzealous security agents hurriedly bring the suspects to court without due diligence or any iota of preliminary investigations. In most cases, it is when the trial commences that they begin to look for evidence to prosecute them. This act is not only condemnable, but also a major cog in the wheel of speedy dispensation of justice. It is equally accounted for the high number of cases pending in our courts across the nation. We need to borrow a leaf from other climes where things are done rightly with the expertise, commitment required, so that we don't keep repeating the same mistakes and expect to make progress in our criminal justice administration, especially in the fight against corruption. There's nowhere in the world where the court grants the praise that are not sought for, because we always say that the court is not a Father Christmas. We only grant what is asked for. Therefore, it is not possible to put something on nothing and expect it to stand. This occasion offers us yet another sterling opportunity to holistically examine our mode of operation with a view to charting a workable pathway to success in this Herculean task of ridding our country of corruption. The judiciary is ever poised to deploy every relevant legal tool at its disposal to whittle down the strength of corruption in our mindset. No nation can survive with corruption at the center of our conscience. We have over the years handled several corruption cases and given complimentary judgments to convey a strong message to those with insuperable penchant of corruption in the country. It is a record that between 2015 and 2020, some governors, ministers, senators, civil servants, among others, have variously been jailed by the courts and also made to forfeit the looted funds and access to the government. It was as a result of our firm resolve to completely plight the fortunes of corruption in the country that we inaugurated the Corruption and Financial Crime Cases Trial Monitoring Committee, COMTRIMCO, headed by one of our retired justices, Honorable Justice Galadima. The committee is to monitor the trial of corruption and financial crimes across the country. This is to put the designated judges on their toes as their efforts and the outputs are now being closely monitored by COMTRIMCO. The results we are getting from the committee are quite impressive and accelerating. Between 2017 and 2020, the Supreme Court has disposed of 52 corruption and financial cases, financial cases. Now, within the same time frame, the Court of Appeal had disposed of 121 cases. The Federal High Court disposed of 19 cases. High Courts of the Federal Capital Territory, 10 cases. And all state high courts, almost 188 cases. The judiciary has long been a dependable ally of the ICPC, and we are giving our best to the relationship so that our country could once again be the envy of other nations, and as well scale the ladder to occupy its rightful position among the Committee of Nations. Surely our green, white, green national flag shall soon be hoisted among those countries where trust, honesty, and integrity take the center stage of their national lives. Nigeria must remain to be great. Thank you.
The Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Ibrahim Tanko Mohammed, providing perspective from the judiciary. We have heard from an official of the executive, and we will still hear from the president himself later. We have heard from the judiciary, and next we will hear from the legislature as I invite the President of the Senate, Senator Ahmed Ibrahim Lawan, to please make his intervention.
My Lord, we need to put this up.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, Your Excellency, President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, my Lord, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, the Chairman Nigeria Governors Forum, Secretary to Government of the Federation, the Chief of Staff, Mr. President, members of the Federal Executive Council, the Chairman, ICPC, UN representative, distinguished awardees, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I bring warm felicitations from the National Assembly of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. First, let me congratulate the President and all Nigerians on the 60th anniversary of our nation and the ICPC on its 20th anniversary. We are particularly delighted by the theme of this year's theme of ICPC Summit, which is Together Against Corruption, because it stresses that fighting corruption is our collective responsibility. And this was very amply demonstrated by the actions of the legislature and the executive in the fourth session of the National Assembly, when the bill to establish the ICPC was passed and signed by the then executive. So congratulations to the legislature and the executive in partnership. The 9th National Assembly was inaugurated on 11th June 2019. At our inauguration, we stressed that we will maintain a cordial relationship between the two chambers of the National Assembly and work together with the executive and judicial arms of government towards the realization of the earnings of the people of Nigeria. This is without compromising on the doctrine of separation of powers. We have kept our words and ensured the necessary synergy, particularly between the legislature and the executive. Since then, the partnership has yielded improved service delivery, transparency, and accountability in the utilization of approved funds in our budgets. This partnership has been working and should be supported by all at all times. Sections 4, subsections 1 and 2 of the 1999 Constitution as amended vest the legislative powers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on the National Assembly. As a conscious and patriotic assembly, the 9th National Assembly has passed several important legislations to advance the social and economic well-being of our country. Some of these bills that were passed that have received presidential assent contain important anti-corruption components. For example, the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020 is of particular significance because sections 119 to 123 of the Act have for the first time in the history of this country made provisions for establishment of beneficial ownership register. This has far-reaching implications for control of corruption, money laundering, and investigation of assets by anti-corruption agencies. Part of the critical anti-corruption function of the National Assembly is oversight function. In furtherance of its anti-corruption mandate and the directive principle of state policy of eradicating corruption in section 15, subsection 5 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, the 9th National Assembly have, through committees of both chambers of the National Assembly, leverage on the power of oversight and public hearing. Exercise of these functions is part of the demands of transparency, accountability, and open governance that are vital components of the change agenda. Public hearings and the revelations they generate should be seen as part of the legislature's contribution to the war against corruption in Nigeria. I therefore call on Nigerians to support legislative investigations and urge heads of ministries, departments, and agencies to respect and honor invitations by relevant committees of the National Assembly in this all-important task of governance. The prize of leadership is certainly openness and transparency. The National Assembly will continue to shine the light on any MDA or government procedure that lacks transparency. I commend the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation and indeed the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission ICPC for organizing this second National Summit on Diminishing Corruption. I also commend the ICPC for a spirit of collaboration with other institutions of government. ICPC organized a retreat with anti-corruption committees of the National Assembly recently to intensify synergy with the legislature. As the theme of the summit suggests, we need to work together as Nigerians, as arms and institutions of government to roll back corruption in our country. I believe that we can achieve our targets with a united front. I urge this summit to come up with actionable steps to rid Nigeria of corruption and forward proposals requiring legislation to the National Assembly for action. We shall endeavor to live up to the yearnings and aspirations of the Nigerian people at all times. Once again, congratulations, Nigeria. Congratulations, Mr. President. Congratulations, ICPC. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Senator Ahmed Ibrahim Lawan, President of the Senate. Thank you for what you do for the country, collaborating with different arms of government to ensure that the country gets the best. Your Excellency, Mr. President, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we are going to do two things back to back in quick succession. A book will be presented on ICPC at 20 and Nigeria Corruption Index. And there will be recognition of public sector integrity awardees, winners of the music and essay competition. They will be presented. I'm inviting the chairman of the ICPC to take us through these sessions, which would then dovetail into the launch of National Ethics and Integrity Policy by Mr. President.
Your Excellency, sir, two books to document the legacy of ICPC. The first, the ICPC and the War Against Corruption in Nigeria, Reflections for a New Vision, which documents the experience of since ICPC was established under all its boards and chairmen, including where it hopes to go in future. The second, very quickly, Your Excellency, sir, is the Nigeria Corruption Index, which focuses on grand corruption and its effects in the country. As you say, most surveys, including Transparency, the UNODC, and MBS surveys, focus on retail corruption, small things that affect people's lives, which are very important. And this is the first time that a survey is focusing on grand corruption. When somebody steals as much as $1 billion, what does it do to the system? Those two publications are put forward to Your Excellency for presentation. Secondly, sir, it gives me great pleasure, sir, to first of all introduce to Your Excellency. May I ask the young people, the music winner, and the two students to stand up to be recognized by Mr. President. So I want to introduce Opeyemi Peter Adeboye, the winner of the anti-corruption music competition. He's 25 years old from Kwara State, the youngest choir master in his church. He competed with almost 1,000 other entries, received votes and endorsement from the public, and finally, by a panel of judges, to emerge the winner of the anti-corruption youth music competition for the first original song against corruption, Opeyemi Peter Adeboye. Secondly, sir, it gives me great pleasure to introduce two young ladies. 12-year-old Chikezie Favor, a GSS2 student of Mountain Crest High School from Owerri, Imo State. She flew in just about 30 minutes before Your Excellency came in. Winner of the junior secondary essay competition. And 14-year-old Matilda Daniels from an SS1 student of top grade secondary school, Lagos State, who emerged winner of the senior secondary school education essay competition. Their topics were on the role of youth in the fight against corruption, and the junior one was what young people think about eradicating examination malpractice. I present these three young Nigerians to Mr. President for recognition. Finally, sir, it gives me great pleasure to present to Mr. President the two public servants who have been recognized today. May I request that you stand up, please? First, I wish to introduce Malam Hamza Adamu Bwai from the Federal Ministry of Trade and Investment. from Sokoto State, who is a chartered accountant, who has worked in various commissions and was once a member of ICPC Act 2 setup. He worked at the Nigerian National Boundary Commission and saved the nation 2.5 billion from going into the defunct Societe Generale Bank in 2004, in spite of a lot of pressure to put the money there by those who knew the bank was failing and they wanted to try and shore it up. As Deputy Director and Chairman of the Liabilities Committee in Ministry of Defense, he saved government 7.9 billion, which had already been paid to contractors but was mischievously and deliberately relisted as a liability of government. For placing national interest above self, Your Excellency, sir, I present Hamza Adamu Burai to be honored with the 2020 ICPC Public Sector Integrity Award. The second award winner is a distinguished police officer, CSP Francis Osage Erabo, from Igwebe in Edo State. A political scientist by training, he attended the University of Sokoto and also the University of Benin. He has been a cadet inspector and has served in various capacities as police PRO, trainer, instructor, squadron commander, and while serving as pipeline commander, most notably, he refused bribes from smugglers of adulterated petroleum products. For these and other acts of integrity, everywhere he worked, we did background checks and went around everywhere he went, taking testimonies from community people and traditional rulers, and the report was simply outstanding. Indeed, he exemplifies the fact that the Nigeria police does have distinguished officers. Sir, he has won many other integrity awards before this one, and so, sir, it gives us great honor and pleasure to present to Mr. President for recognition the award, the 2020 ICPC Public Sector Service Integrity Award. Your Excellency, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Owasunwe. Your Excellency, Mr. President, it is now time to launch the National Ethics and Integrity Policy. And to join you on the podium there will be the Senate President and the Chief Justice of Nigeria, as well as Chairman ICPC. They will join Mr. President on the platform for the launch of the National Ethics and Integrity Policy. After that, there will be a photo session with the 5 people seated here, the essay and music winners, the police officer, and the other one for the Civil Service Integrity Award. After the launch, the 5 of them will move up to join Mr. President. Okay, and then the photo.
Well, Mr. President, with the winners, with the launching, is with the Senate President supporting him, the Chairman ICPC, Justice of Nigeria, are supporting him in the launch of National Ethics and Integrity Policy. In recognition of President Buhari's determination to fight corruption to a standstill, the African Union named him African Anti-Corruption Champion in 2018. And from all we have heard here today, the fight against corruption will only succeed if we as a people come together to work against corruption.
Awardees step forward to receive the award, after which they will take a group photograph with Mr. President. One after the other, please. Can we step forward to receive our awards? Thank you.
But that was the first awardee, Mr. Amza Adamu Puai, an accountant by profession. And now it's the turn of CSP Francis Osage Erabo, who has received Integrity Icon Award. And next we will have the young musician Adeboye Okpeyemi, who's the winner of the music competition at ICPC. And next, I think we'll have Matilda Daniels, who came first in the secondary school competition. And the last but not the least will be Chikeze Favor. Chikeze Favor. And there she goes. These are the proud winners of the ICPC award.
Hold your plaque. No.
Well, the president is now going to have a group photograph with the awardees. And after this, we will have the president's remark. Nigerians, proud ones,
Thank you very much.
and pride, their generation.
Congratulations to the award winners, and thank you, Mr. President, for the honor they have to take this photograph with the father of the country. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the high point of this event, in which we are going to hear from Mr. President. Remarks by President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, after which we will take the national anthem and the event will be brought to a close. Mr. President, your remarks, sir.
Thank you very much. President of the Senate, Chief Justice of Nigeria, Chairman, Nigerian Governors Forum, members of the Federal Executive Council, Chairman of ICPC, United Nations President Coordinator, Senator, senior government officials, award winners, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. This year marks two significant hallmarks in the history of our country. A few days from now, we will, by the grace of God, be celebrating Nigeria's 60th anniversary as an independent, sovereign nation. This summit also commemorates the 20th anniversary of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission. The commission emerged as part of the measures that successive administrations in Nigeria have put in place over the years to fight corruption. As military head of state, I fought corruption headlong and held public officers who abused their offices or misused public funds to account. Furthermore, I introduced the war against indiscipline, one of various cardinal objectives was promotion of a cherished culture of ethical conduct, integrity, and hard work. I recognize in 1984, as I do even more now, that corruption poses a clear danger to Nigeria. So, we cannot relent in efforts to eradicate it from our society. As I have often reminded Nigerians, I quote, "If we do not kill corruption, corruption will kill Nigeria," unquote. In my inaugural speech in 2015, I affirmed the determination of this administration to rebuild and reform the public service to become more effective and serviceable. I charge public servants to apply themselves with integrity to stabilize the system and solicited the cooperation of the legislative arm to maintain their brief of making laws and carrying out oversight functions. In the same speech, I called for the reform of the judicial system and for the judiciary to act with dispatch in cases, especially cases on corruption, serious financial crimes, and abuse of office. I believe that it is when the three arms and the three levels of government work together that government will be enabled to serve the country. We will also see the positive impact of our efforts reaching all and sundry across the country. Bearing this critical factor in mind, I am happy that the theme of this year's summit by ICPC is Together Against Corruption. I am aware that this theme derives from the theme of our 60th anniversary celebration. Together as a nation, as a people, the three arms and three tiers of government working together, we can attack corruption and realize the vast potentials of our country. I said in my speech at the 2018 NBA Annual General Conference that one of the challenges we face in delivering the expectation of our citizens is how to transform our society from one in which impunity in the management of national resources is the norm to one in which a culture of accountability and transparency prevails. We need to deploy resources to address our common needs rather than the greed of careless few. We need a corruption-free public sector to achieve this transformation. We need a judicial system that dispenses justice without undue delay and technicality. We need laws and legal system to be reformed to deliver justice to every citizen without regard to status. And finally, we need ethical reorientation of the people to achieve this goal. When we work together against corruption, we can defeat it. I want to commend the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation and the ICPC for organizing this summit and including in the program an opportunity for the three arms of government to indicate their roles in meeting the aspiration of Nigerians to a corruption-free society. I am particularly pleased by the recognition and participation of young Nigerians and non-state actors, especially the media and civil society at this event, because nobody must be left behind and all hands must be on deck in the fight against corruption. I wish to reiterate the role of preventive measures and public education and enlightenment against corruption. This government, though through the Open Treasury Initiative, Treasury Single Account, Government Integrity, Financial Management Information System, Bank Verification Number, and many more, is implementing different corruption prevention measures to track and retain government revenue for the use of the people. I commend the ICPC for its enforcement and prevention measures, including system review of capital and personal budget, regular analysis of the Open Treasury platform, enforcement action against diversion and mismanagement of public funds, working with FIRS to increase the number of companies and persons within the tax net, tracking of constituency project budget utilization for the benefit of ordinary Nigerians, and its monitoring of implementation of budget by the executive in key sectors like agriculture sector. The ICPC system studies and review, ethics and integrity compliance scorecard of MDAs are excellent preventive measures for detection of early warning signs of vulnerability of MDAs to corruption, and a way of assisting government take note of MDAs that are prone to corruption and deserve closer scrutiny of government and law enforcement agencies. I note that ICPC is documenting its work, achievements, and recommendations to government. I am happy to present the book marking its 20th anniversary titled ICPC and the War Against Corruption in Nigeria, Reflections for a New Vision, and 6 other publications, including the Nigerian Corruption Index, Constituency and Executive Projects, Tracking Initiative Interim Report 2020, the Ethics and Integrity Compliance Scorecard of MDAs 2020, Accountability for Security Votes, and Eradicating Electoral Corruption and Vote Buying. I am also happy to recognize winners of ICPC Youth Music and Essay competitions on promotion of anti-corruption values. The music and essay competitions organized by ICPC show the true character and grit of Nigerian youth. I urge them to seize the moment and also stand together with one voice against corruption. Let me use this opportunity to recognize and commend Opeyemi Peter Adeboye as winner of the Anti-Corruption Music Award, Chikezi Favor, winner of Junior Secondary School Competition, and Matilda Daniels, winner of the Senior Secondary School Competition. As I mentioned earlier, the importance of the public service to our anti-corruption effort. I am therefore extremely delighted to recognize and present the 2020 Public Service Integrity Award to 2 honest public servants who have demonstrated the will to look away from graft and corruption. CSP Francis Osagi Erabo of the Nigeria Police and Hamza Adamu Buai of the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment are both recognized and acknowledged as worthy Nigerians, public servants who make us proud. I congratulate all the awardees. Even though COVID-19 has not permitted the kind of ceremony that you deserve, Nigeria is proud of you. You are a pride to your families, institutions, and Nigeria. These public service awards remind us of the need for value reorientation and revival of ethics and integrity in national life. I am happy that the ICPC, in collaboration with the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation and National Orientation Agency, worked together to prepare and present the National Ethics and Integrity Policy to the Federal Executive Council as part of the commemorative activities for Nigeria at 60. Federal Executive Council adopted this policy on the 19th of August 2020. I commend the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, ICPC, and National Orientation Agency for bringing to fruition this important priority objective of this administration. The National Ethics and Integrity Policy Project, government's aspirations for rediscovery of our cherished traditional ethical values of honesty, integrity, hard work, truth and justice, unity, faith, and consideration for one another irrespective of status or background. Corruption and corruptive tendencies are abhorrent to these core ethical values. We must all join hands together to fight corruption and return to our traditional values of honesty and integrity. I hereby use the opportunity of this summit to launch the National Ethics and Integrity Policy as a fresh roadmap to return Nigeria to these critical national values. Finally, let me use this opportunity to congratulate all Nigerians on our 60th anniversary and ICPC on its 20th anniversary. I urge all Nigerians participating in this summit to come up with recommendations on ways to further enforce our laws and prevent corruption in the public sector in Nigeria. Thank you, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Can we rise for the national anthem, please? 1, 2, go. Arise, O compatriots, Nigeria's call obey, to serve our fatherland with love and strength and faith. The labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain, to serve with heart and might one nation bound in freedom, peace and unity. Thank you.
Corruption in public sector. This is regarded as pivotal to the attainment of the anti-corruption goals. And more importantly, as the president said, all arms of government must come together in the fight. And so, we want to say thank you for staying with us, the NTA, African largest television network. I am Jide Onifade.